Let's story time, YouTube. Here's the story time. Um, what we're going to talk about today is some shit. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, here's the thing. I'm starting a new segment in YouTube. It's going to be called Story Time. It's going to be in the playlist. Let's talk about some stuff. So, which call do I want to refer to? Let's go to one of my more interesting calls. Got a life-saving award for this one. So at the time, I was still an EMT. We, oh man, I don't even know what year it was. It doesn't matter. So at the time, I was still EMT, and at the time in my department, we were running a medic EMT box, still considered an ALS box. So my fire department runs fire and EMS. So on that day, I was on the box with the medic, who is now one of my really good friends, and so we were on the box that day, and it's pretty late at night, relatively. I would say it's probably like around 11 o'clock, maybe. Um, I think at that time I was already asleep. It was I don't remember if it was my call, considered my call, or the other guy. No, I was definitely it was definitely my call, from when it came out because the other guy was driving. um, so we pull out, we get called out to a major accident. Uh, I don't remember if it came out as a rescue or not. Um, I would have to go back and look at the report and stuff like that. But came out as a major accident. Me and my buddy get en route. We're on our way. We have other engines and stuff following behind us. We got out of the house pretty quick. Um, it was us, our engine, and we had a truck coming as well, which is the basic response to major accidents. We're on our way there. We get probably about a quarter of the way there, and dispatch comes over the radio, gives us a report, says this is going to be a motorcycle accident. There is going to be amputation, and there's only going to be one rider involved. And we're like, holy fuck! Like, did like this person like fall off the bike as she was going, or it turns out it was a she. Later on in the story, I'm just jumping ahead. Turns out, mate, we're like, what the fuck? Like, maybe she fell off, maybe she got hit by a car and the car ran away, kind of thing, like a hit and run. Um, so we're on our way there and we're talking and we're like, holy fuck, this is gonna suck. Amputation, like what's amputated? Like we're running shit through our head. Like, okay, well, at the time we also just got a medication, um, two medications called succinylcholine. It's a hard word to say, and then rocuronium. Both of these drugs are paralytics. We had just got them literally the day before, right? And so I'm with the medic. He's been there probably about 5 years at this point, and I've been there probably two or maybe 3 years. No, let's go with 2 years. I think I'd been there for 2 years. I'm a little bit of a bragging moment. Pretty solid. I was a pretty solid EMT for what that's worth. I know that EMTs can only do so much, and I know a lot of medics don't like riding with them. But I was a very competent EMT. I knew where everything was in the box. I knew how my partner operated. I knew what he was going to ask for. I knew him like the back of my hand when it came to critical calls, and also kind of what was coming next. I knew the protocols very well. I knew drug dosages. I knew quite a bit as just your basic EMT, and kind of what was going to go down. Um, And this happened right before I was starting paramedic school. So this happened probably like a month before I was starting paramedic school. But I've done a lot of their trainings and CE classes and stuff like that. So I was pretty confident in what we were about to walk into, and knowing that I was going to be able to help out as much as I could, you know. So on the way there, my paramedic partner is like, "Hey, like, if this is really as bad as they say it is, I want you in the back of the box with me." And he's like, "I know you're EMT." He said, "But I want you back there, because you know how I operate." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. I'm down." So we pull up on scene. Sure enough, there's a lady that's on top of a guardrail. She's still, when we pull up, motorcycle is like probably 50 feet away. It's now propped up because one of the other riders that she was riding with had propped it up. She is laying over the guardrail, blood all over the side of the guardrail. As we're walking up, obviously there's an amputation. There's no leg. She's lost her right leg all the way up to the groin. And it's just kind of sitting on the ground. As we're walking up, we're like, man, is she even alive? Like, hope. I know this sounds bad, but maybe she's dead. She didn't suffer that long, like, you know. And as we're going up, we check for life. We like touch her, about to check for pulse, and she moans, and we're like, fuck. Okay, so now we got to do some shit, right? So we're like, all right. And my partner's yelling. He yells out, "Hey, backboard! We need all this. Like, just get the works." And I think at the time, we, instead of using the backboard, we just went ahead and we didn't even. It was life over limb at that point. We just grabbed her, picked her up, put her on the cot. One of the guys got the leg, handed it to me, so there I am holding her leg in my hands. It's actually pretty heavy if you've never held a leg in your hands before. Got the leg, set it on the stretcher like where it was supposed to be, put it there. And of course the leg was just mangled, and she had broke her tib fib that was on the detached leg. So it was just all crooked and stuff like that. So I set it on the cot next to her. At this time, you would think there would be a lot of bleeding. There was not that much bleeding, because since it was kind of more of a pool of it was more of a, it wasn't like a clean cut, right? So it was more of it was cutting but also pulling away at the same time kind of thing from her leg. As it pulled away, I've learned that as a limb gets pulled off the body instead of cleanly cut, as it gets pulled, the vessels and arteries and stuff constrict as it gets pulled. So it constricted, therefore the blood loss was pretty minimal, really, which was very surprising to us. When we got her on the cot, the bleeding was controlled, as far as external bleeding, like coming from her leg and stuff like that. So we get her on the cot. I jump in the back, as well as my partner and two other medics jump back there, and so we're back there, and she's just moaning, really, and so we're like, man, she's in bad shape. We're gonna have to take her airway. And at this time, we had just gotten the new medications for paralytics, and we're like, we're gonna have to use these on this call. This is why we got them. And so my partner was like, all right, let's do it. How much do you think she weighs? And I'm like, man, she's probably like $120, you know, maybe, if that. She's a pretty relatively, seemed like she was an in shape girl. Coming to find out, she was about 21, 23, somewhere around there. So she wasn't huge or out of shape or anything like that. So we're like, she can handle this. So we weren't like, yeah, we were in a hurry, but we were like, okay, well, like, seems like she's in pretty good health. Like, she's got a higher chance than somebody that's not. So we get the at that point we did sucks and ketamine to sedate and paralyze. Got the airway. At this time, somebody's already in the front seat. We're hauling ass to the hospital. As we're examining everything, her vital signs were damn good, like 120/70, and we're like, holy shit, like, awesome. This is good for us. Like that we're able to work with that. So we're going down the highway. I'm like, hey man, like I know this isn't really my place, but this is yeah, it's not only a amputation, but it's kind of blunt trauma. She was like slid across the guardrail. Um, we're noticing some bruising around like her stomach and area and stuff like that. I'm like, hey man, maybe some TXA. What are your thoughts on that? And he was like, yes, good idea. Let's push the TXA. So at the time it was 1 gram. We pushed 1 gram of TXA. We got 2 lines on her. No problem at all. We had a bag hung, and we just kind of monitor her. She was relatively fine. We bandaged up her leg. On the way to the hospital, we just continuously monitored her vital signs, which stayed pretty well, like perfectly. On the way to the hospital, you could tell she had a little bit of like maybe a concussion, maybe a little bit of brain damage. She did have her helmet on, thankfully. We had to take that off in order to get her airway. We took that off. Her pupils were a little sluggish, but like I said, pupil diameters were equal, but they were a little bit sluggish. But by this time, we had her tubes, sedated, paralyzed, all that stuff. On the way to the hospital. We checked lung sounds. Lung sounds were clear bilaterally. She just had a little bit of bruising, so we did not have to dart her chest. At that point, we just did TXA, monitored vital signs. Oxygen levels were perfect. It was right around 94, 96, which was good enough for us to tube, so we tubed her. Bagging her, we obviously got it up to right at 100%, 99, 100. End titles were good, right at 35. We wanted to keep it at 35 just in case she had a brain injury at that time. Protocols say that if they have a brain injury, 35 on the end title is about perfect or about where you want it, because you want to keep the vessels to where they're not super constricted, but you also don't want them super dilated for blood flow reasons and all that stuff. But anyways. So we got her to the hospital, got her into the trauma bay. She was still doing good with us. Blood pressure still good, end title still good, heart rate and everything's good. She's not having like Cushing's or anything like that. Got her in there, got her moved over. And we were like, hey, where do you want this leg? And she was like, oh, we're just gonna put it on the ground. So the hospital just got the leg and like put it on the ground next to the their like little board up there. And I was like, holy shit, like obviously not putting that back on. Anyways, so all said and done, we get everything cleaned up. We're like, holy fuck, that was a gnarly call. My partner comes over to me, he's like, hey man, good job. I know that was pretty gnarly for an EMT, because you're not able to do like a whole lot besides like basically hand us shit. He said, but you knew everything was, you knew the protocols, what I was going to ask for next, like all that stuff. I was like, cool, thanks man. And all said and done, we get everything all cleaned up, get back to the station, and I think maybe I don't know, a week later we get a text, or we get something. I don't remember if it's an email or text or whatever. It's like, hey, y'all are going to get a life-saving award for the motorcycle lady, because she was still alive. She was still alive when y'all got her to the hospital, and she made it all the way into surgery. And we're like, holy shit, badass. Like, that's cool. We're like, well, how's she doing now? And all that stuff. And he was like, it was our EMS captain at the time. He was like, yeah, unfortunately she didn't make it out of surgery. She said, but without y'all's help, she wouldn't even made it to the hospital. So she made it to the hospital. They stabilized her enough in the trauma bay, and then they shipped her up to the OR, and she died on the table. I guess there was too much internal damage and bleeding to correct it in time before she bled out internally, basically. But we gave her the TXA. which we notified the hospital about. We notified them that their trauma was coming in. We did everything by the book. We did everything like we were supposed to, and we got her to live until she went to surgery. So we did all that we could do. She was still alive when we dropped her off at the hospital. And so the hospital was like, listen, like, y'all did everything you could. You basically, y'all like y'all delayed the inevitable, unfortunately. But y'all did everything you're supposed to do. You pushed all the right medications. Like, y'all deserve an award for getting her here alive, and she made it all the way to surgery. And unfortunately, she didn't make it out of surgery. But y'all do deserve an award, so they gave us the life-saving award. Which, you know, at the end of the day, it's not really a life-saving award. It's just an award for getting somebody to the hospital alive, which didn't end well. But it is what it is. All in all, learned a lot from that call. Learned a lot from my partner. And now I'm a paramedic. I ride the box quite a bit now, and me and that partner still ride together all the time. And we've been into some shitty calls, I can tell you that. But all in all, we know how each other works. We know the protocols very well now. Well, still, and you know, it is what it is. We expect every time we get on the medic, we expect something bad because me and this guy are black clouds, and it's gotten us into some shit several times now, and that's some more stories for next time. That is story number 1. That's one of the I would say that's probably one of the gnarliest calls I've been on since I've been at the fire department now. That's been like one of the first major calls I've been on that I can remember so far, since I've been on the fire department. And that was just as an EMT. Now I'm a paramedic. I've gotten to do some more shit. I've gotten to do some pretty cool shit. So we'll get into that next time. Okay, guys? Thank y'all for listening.